Impro Theater and the cast and crew of this online performance would like to take this time to honor the indigenous peoples of the ancestral and unceded homelands we each inhabit, and to consider the legacy of colonization. In Los Angeles, we pay our respect to the Gabrielina Tongva peoples. Impro Theater supports the promotion of an anti-racist world, where we recognize diversity, equity, and inclusion as central to our values. We are listening, learning, and growing. We invite you to join us in taking action wherever we can to create a more just world. Hey everybody, welcome to Impro Talk. So glad you could join us. Very excited to have our guest today, the ensemble behind Sonder, the Improvised podcast. Each episode of Sonder is improvised while streaming live and is based on a single audience suggestion provided by the live stream audience. Music, sound effects, and audio sweetening are added later in post-production. And apart from just a little bit of editing, the story remains exactly as recorded. Today, I have several members of the Sonder ensemble as my guests to talk about their origins and how the show came together and how they make it happen, and anything else they want to talk about. So please welcome to Impro Talk, Sonder. And here they are.
Hello.
Welcome, everybody. Wow, it's so exciting to have most, I think more than 50% of the Sonder team. Gail Brennan is here, Rick Stedman, Andrew Pierce, Troy Anthony Miller, Karen Foreman, Jeff Bowser, Rebecca Lohman. Welcome all to Impro Talk. This is part one of a Sonder Impro Talk conversation. Let's jump right into it. And let me just ask, anybody can talk first. When you first started with Sonder, was there, you personally, were you like all in, you personally, just speaking for yourself, were you all in, yeah, great, go for the weird sci-fi thing or whatever, or were you like, oh, I'm not sure if this is gonna work? Where were you when it first started? Anybody can go. Don't be polite.
I'll start just to start. It was interesting because we all kind of collectively found Sonder. Like it was the product of probably like 2.5 months of kind of playing around and trying to figure out what this thing was going to be. We were all in the Impro lab together, and Kelly
Holden Bashar
had pitched that it would be an audio podcast of some sort. But that was really all we kind of knew coming into it was, it would be led by the kind of artistic values of impro. So it would be narrative, it would be improvised. It might have genre aspects to it. But then the rest of it there was a lot of like play and conversation and figuring out what it would be, which was smoother than it had any right to be, I think.
I agree.
I would add one more thing too, like one of the things we knew going in, and I think that was we didn't want to deal with the situation we were currently in. We wanted to go to something other than being locked into a pandemic.
Right.
And I think that kind of drove us as well.
Yeah.
Because this all started fairly early in pandemic times. And so it was sort of, not that anything's any more clear now, but it was sort of freshly interminable. Like the pandemic was freshly, who knows what's going to happen next.
I mean, the lab that we were working on, which was genre design, and we had pitched ideas to each other, and we had everything had all coalesced. Words are hard. And Yeah, and so we had to abandon that whole genre after all the work that we did on it. And so we were just, what do we do? And I think this was the second iteration where we sort of went like, let's go back to what we were doing with the audio stuff and let's make it an actual show. I speaking personally for myself, I'm never afraid. I was excited by how scary and insane it seemed to do this. And the more we dove into it and the weirder it got, for me, I was all in. It was just tell me where to sign. I'm in for all of the weird. So to answer the personal question,
Jeff?
I feel like we fell into it. Like I kind of remember maybe we did some warm-ups with the cameras off and we came back and we're like, what? That was really kind of fun. And yeah, and then maybe we extended that a little bit and then we experimented with what if we left the cameras off kind of thing. That's how I remember it. I remember kind of like stumbling into this and the answer was right in, at least for me, the answer was right in front, like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I liked the way it kind of, there was something very monumental about a pandemic and very historic. And it felt like we were returning to the days where people would sit huddled around a radio and you would escape reality as a family listening to radio. And it felt like something was coming back around. I don't know. That was
Oh, I
me.
love that. I love that comparison, Jeff, of being huddled around the radio at home.
Yeah.
It was also,
Rebecca Lohman.
oh, thanks. Also just being so enclosed, and then again being enclosed because we all had to sort of make like a booth or something, and then being able to imagine anything, to blow out all walls. It was really sort of therapeutic too. And there's a feeling of connection that's kind of amazing. I know I do it with my eyes closed mostly. I know a lot of people do. So you're sitting in this room and your eyes are closed and you've got headphones on, and everyone's voice is in your head. So as an experience for me, when connection was so longed for, it was so beautiful to meet everybody in this other world and run around. It was a great thing to happen for a pandemic.
Like putting on an Oculus goggles and meeting people in a. Karen?
Yeah, I was just going to add to that I think once we landed on the idea of what did you believe was true as a child, it put us into this really fun, playful space that I think improv already provides. But being in the pandemic and, the environment we were in, I felt like for myself, I kind of lost that element of play in my life. And so to have it come through this wonderful suggestion of, what you believed as a child, like that felt like such a fun jumping off point. And it really never felt like work to me. It just felt like pure joy and play. And a lot of the other Zoom things that I had done were just felt a lot heavier. I think because partially of the video element. So yeah, it was just such a joyful process from the beginning. And this group of people are just so lovely and generous and kind and fun. And so, yeah, it's been just such a joy.
That is great. Rick?
Yeah, just quickly kind of further to what Karen and Rebecca said, like the level of connection I feel like that we've had through this process. Maybe it's because it's audio, maybe it's because we were all kind of creating this thing together, sort of from whole cloth. But like we've been working on this since July of 2020. And Rebecca Lohman and I have yet to meet in person. And
Wow.
yeah, no, it's true. We've never met in person. Unless we like like walked past each other at Impro, which maybe that happened, but I don't know that we've met in person. But we haven't, you know, it's February 22, and the conditions of the world are such that like we've been working on this thing a long time and a great deal. And we are really close knit for not having been physically in the same space for the entire process. Like it is a very close cast, which is wonderful.
It is. That's
Yeah.
a amazing testament.
Yeah, and I think you know, that's a long time, and I think heavy things have happened to all of us individually. I know they've happened to my family where I can't make rehearsal tonight, and this is why, and it's super heavy, and that really brings you closer, especially when you're so far apart, and turning off the lights or closing your eyes and just for an hour being locked into a story and just listening to each other and really having to listen and it's I know it's forced me to slow down as a player, which I think people like Dan O'Connor might say, don't slow down even more, Jeff. But I have, you know, I have because I've had to, you know. So sorry, Dan, but I have a little bit. But they speed it up in post. That's what we just do. That's the secret that
we take out all the improv in post.
I think some kids' voices and Tinkerbell and some other things have actually been, but that's so great that you just dovetailing off of Jeff's and Rick's comments, because what you're talking about having happened to you as a group is what you all as theater makers and storytellers want to do for audiences. You want to bring them closer together. You want to bring, I mean, I'm putting something on you just having heard those, but I think I can safely say that part of your mission, each of you individually and Sonder as an ensemble, as a show, is to bring people together, bridge the gap between people through storytelling.
Yeah.
Concur.
Wow. Congratulations. No one's
Yeah.
ever been able to make us be quiet for that long.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, we're
like,
really on
"Oh."
our best behavior today. I'm really surprised that there's not
Yeah.
more bits. There's no bits.
Yeah.
You're welcome to not be if you'd like. There's there's an emotional truth even to the silly episode, because your episodes range from some very heavy ones to some very silly ones, and yet in the episodes, and even frankly, sometimes comparing the live version to what ends up being the edited version, there's this emotional truth to the characters and the acting. There are sometimes moments that are just sort of silly for silly's sake, because you're storytellers and we're riding the sine wave of the story. But there's this grounded commitment to character and to the relationships between the characters, and a vulnerability and emotional rawness about how you approach unraveling the story together. I don't know if I have a question connected to this. That's more of an observation.
You know, I was going to say, I want Troy to speak because he's not saying anything. Troy, I want you to speak, but first I'm going to speak. So anyway, I was going to say, going back to what Loman said about how we close our eyes, and a lot of us do. I'm also an eye closer, which is hard because then I'm not looking at the is your mic on or not. But I think that part of it, of just being in your own head with your eyes closed and just living in that space in that moment with your scene partner, really, for me, I don't know about you guys, but for me, it really like allows me to drop into that emotional space in a way that feels very real and very vulnerable sometimes. Like I think in this work, in this group, I think I've done some of my most vulnerable work in here because of the way it feels so close and so personal. Right, Troy?
Yeah, Gail, that's true. Well, what actually what is interesting. I'm curious if anyone else has felt this while doing this show, but as an improviser on stage, you're obviously trying to have that radar where you're taking in everything, right? Everything is an offer, everything is a gift. It's right in front of you. Voice and vocal quality is enhanced in this format, right? On stage, someone may do a character or a voice or even just speak normally, and it's part of the other senses that you're receiving. Here, it's all you're receiving. So it's so fascinating to do improv where you're just responding to voice. How is someone talking? Are they loud? Are they soft? What's their vocal quality? Even the quality of their microphone. Maybe it's a real resonant sound. Maybe it's a little more tinny. And that is an interesting thing to respond to. It's different. It's your entire focus is on that. And there is an intimacy there, right? When people talk to you right up to your ear, it's very intimate, right? Sometimes I feel myself getting close to the mic because I want to whisper, and you can't whisper on stage, right? What do you guys think about that? I mean, that's been pretty powerful, I think, for me.
I mean, bringing that spatial aspect to the soundscapes that we can produce has been super exciting. Like when someone runs across the room and is doing something over there and you get this long distant echo, it just enhances it. It's so phenomenal to
It's fun for your neighbors too.
Yeah.
Yelling in your
we
room.
played around with a lot of that stuff in rehearsal in terms of, Kelly did a beautiful job of sort of directing us to widen our playing perspective into like physical aspects so that, if I'm talking to you like this, it gives you a completely different quality than if I'm right in here by my mic. And you can kind of help paint the pictures through that physical sense of things. But I think like to the larger point of the vulnerability and the emotionality, I think that I agree with everything that's been said, and I think like it really stems from the fact that we all have this shared training from improv theater, right? Like one of the things that attracted me to Impro as a company is the fact that it's that the Impro ensemble isn't always just sort of looking for the next laugh. They're looking for the next moment, and that moment can be poignant and powerful. And, so we all have trained under the likes of you, Mike, and Joe McGinley, and Stephen Kieran, and Dan O'Connor, all of these people that we've gotten to watch and model ourselves and our work on the kind of truthfulness that can come out. And, and the fact that kind of emotionality makes the laughs when they do happen like that much bigger. Yeah.
And
So
and the fact that it's funny because it's truthing really comes into play here, especially when we are getting into the mind of a child, which we can all relate to. But also where the extraordinary is ordinary. So we're not trying to do anything big or broad. We're trying to bring everything down to the level to like human size. And so just that dichotomy alone is kind of an interesting place for humor, because if the monster under the bed says, if the monster under the bed takes a side in a couple's argument, then that is like the distance between monster and like mediator, that's where so we're never trying to make it bigger. We're always trying to make it more relatable and more life size.
Yeah, it's great how quickly, and anybody who's listened will know this, how quickly you like it seems as soon as the episode starts, whatever's unusual to our normal life is normal in the story, and then the story continues from that new established platform. which is such a in the improv world. Traditionally, improvisers are drawn to make something more weird as soon as possible, instead of establishing the weird and then living in the weird. There's always, it's like shiny, the next shiny object is what improvisers typically go for. Oh no, we need to put another thing on and then another thing on. But at Sonder, it's this is the weird, and here's where we're going to live, and we're going to tell a story in this place, which is both which is both restraint and honesty in storytelling. What you are saying to the audience, this thing that we've established is where we're going to keep you. And there are going to be maybe some twists and turns along the way, but we're not going to upend the entire thing and say, oh, just kidding, new premise.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think that's part of the formulation of it. Here we were suddenly, oh, everyone stay in your house. Like the world had upended on us, and we don't really, we're dealing with that on a personal level. And I think, the conditions of Sonder are that this world has changed on people and it's fundamentally different. But you know what? We're still humans trying to deal with that. And that's not always top of mind for those characters. And I think that's what makes the stories relatable.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I was gonna, what you said, Mike, about how we start off at this abnormal thing is normal from the first, that is a hallmark of what we try to do. It is sort of one of our very first sort of rules that we came up with, is that it's the new abnormal is one of our log lines. So it's sort of, we actually very much strive not to delve too deeply into that. It's not like, we try not to say like, well, why does the monster come out of the mirror and why do your monsters come out of the mirror? It's just, yeah, your monsters come out of the mirror. And then, and
the way it's always done.
Yeah, we've struggled sometimes to not like go dig into that, and we just because as what you said about improvisers, it's like
or to make that,
this
or
is
to
the
make
world,
to make that the immediately it's the thing, right? That's the struggle, I think, that working through this we've experienced, which is like, well, you want to get in there and you want to go, this is the first time the monster came out from under the bed. This is the first time whatever the weird thing is, right? And I think that's a constant journey for us, is to go, no, let's remember this has been happening in this world for some time now. Let's acknowledge that early on,
Yeah, and we can talk about the repercussions of that reality, but we try not to talk too much about the genesis of that reality. I mean, we do sometimes if it's needed in the storytelling, but we try to just go, no, that is the thing, and this is the consequence of living a world where Peter Pan is a real guy.
I think we lean into, I think the way that we get around that, like not wanting to go into why it's weird, is that we hide in the relationships, right? And so we try, at least I'm trying to go deeper into how much I love this person, how much I want to punch this person in the face, why, and the other stuff is kind of incidental. And I think what Sonder is, what makes it different is, to me, it's always felt like Twilight Zone flipped inside out. So the weird is there, but it's not the weird reveal. It's weird already, and then we work backwards from that. It makes sense up here, but I don't think it makes sense from here.
I get what you mean, Jeff. It reminds me, I'm teaching Twilight Zone right now, and it reminds me of, like, for example, with the episode of Eye of the Beholder, where it's revealed, this woman is in bandages, it's revealed that all the doctors and nurses, the normal people, have this kind of crazy looking pig face. We lost Rick.
Such a great episode.
And but what it sounds like what you're saying is, What if the viewer from the beginning of the episode knew that everybody in this world had these weird pig faces, and the woman in the bandages were like, oh, what's going to happen to the woman in the bandages? And so we live already in that world, and then we just live with the human drama of her not fitting in and what's going to happen to her as a result. Your analogy of turning Twilight Zone inside out sounds really pretty spot on for what I see in Sonder. We'll be on the lookout for when Rick can make it back.
Now let's talk about him while he's gone, you guys.
Which is
Oh,
fine.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
totally fine.
It's very
Oh my
Sonder.
God, Rick, you guys.
It's very Sonder. Oh my God, that's so Sonder.
I think
sorry,
I
Rebecca.
think oh no, I don't even raise my hand. I just start talking. It's
No,
a
you don't
problem.
have to raise your hand. You can just start.
Well, I feel like it hasn't happened yet, but I feel like the most Sonder episode of all will be when we say when it happens like that. When we say this is the world, we have then some sort of episode where nothing at all relates to that thing ever until it does.
Mm.
You know, I mean, that would be sort of perfect, and then informs, you know, everything kind of in retrospect. But now I'm super excited. But you know, we have so much fun, and sometimes it's just too much fun to like let it be mundane for too long, you know. It's too delicious.
Rick says he'll be back as soon as possible.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to manage our joy, I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Rick
That-
being back?
That
or
Rick isn't here.
Sonder?
That's what I meant. And then
We have to
Oh,
show
well, we-
enormous restraint.
and we also,
Yeah.
I mean, we manage our joy about the Sonder crap too. But
Is it- how
the
do-
fact
wha-
that Rick's not here is
How does that manifest itself? I mean, if you're being serious about sort of managing how much fun you're having or something like that, does that mean that the raw version of the episode can go on too long, or that you get sidetracked, or what, or am I inventing a problem that doesn't actually exist?
No, that I don't think that's off. I think sometimes we might linger in a scene longer, we might miss endings because we're just kind of caught up in the fun of like creating this soundscape, creating this environment, right?
I think there's times. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. No.
I was going to say, and I think there's times as well where we don't just miss the ending of a scene, we miss the ending of a show, and we tag on more scenes because we're having so much fun in that world. And I think that's where I really experience it.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and in fact,
Yeah.
Jeff, that's Jeff. Why am I telling you this, Jeff? You already know, Mike. It's
I might not know this. I don't pay attention. A lot.
it's possible. I think that is that's where the ability to edit for the podcast is so incredible, because what improviser doesn't go home and go to bed and go, man, if only we had switched those two scenes or whatever, and we're able to do that. And so and that's what happens in the editing room. Sometimes we drop off the second and third ending that we added on, or we actually have moved like two things together or had things happen simultaneously, or lots of different things have happened with the magic of editing. And it's been it feels, it's so satisfying as an improviser to go, oof, get to make it all sweetened and everything. It's really amazing, but it is a challenge for us to stop dicking around and get to the end of the show.
I think we're all so enthusiastic and excited. And so yeah, we sometimes will, Jeff, I think, had us do this a few times, and it really helps, like counting to 20 as a group without our cameras on and stuff, just to like get us like kind of, you know, in that space where we're gonna, you know, be able to listen. Yeah, you know, just the basics, those basic things. But I agree, like the editing has been just so incredible, and the music that gets added. I mean, it's like so many elements that go into it that create what, a really magical kind of episode in the end, I think.
When you
Yeah,
were
I just want to
Sonder
say
mom,
shout out to Ted Cannon, who
Wow.
sort of like
Yes. Oh my
created
God.
that he
Vibe.
created the editing part of it, and also did wrote a lot of the music. He
I
wrote
think
our
he wrote
theme.
all the music.
Yeah. Incredible.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So yeah,
Um,
I mean, that was a lot of figuring out that he and Kelly did together. Yeah.
If you've listened to the Sonder Mom episode, which was the very first episode I think that we edited, and they took Karen was the Sonder mom, she's the robot mom, and they did something to your voice. I just remember hearing that for the first time and going, "Oh shit, we've got something. We've got
Mhm.
Yeah.
something here.
was so
This
exciting.
is
Give a little-
so amazing."
There's a little digitizing to Karen's voice, and then and then when she's running out of, not to spoiler alert, but when she's running out of energy, it kind of goes a little bit. Yeah,
So
the post production is amazing, Ted Cannon, and we haven't said Kelly Holden Bashar's full name. I'll add it as a subtitle, but
Flash it up every once in a while, like every 5 seconds might be nice.
Yeah,
She
yeah, yeah.
requires that, doesn't it? It's in her contract.
just put her picture.
Yeah.
Put her picture.
Brought to you
I think
by
you're allowed
Grant
to put
from-
Ted's name up too, but I think it has to be 3 font sizes smaller.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 In the like the little handwritten thing, they want it so it doesn't look real serious.
And
I think
then,
that's what Kelly wanted.
And Dylan Forehand, I think,
Forehand.
edited
Yeah.
all of our
I think
episodes.
third
Okay.
season? Yeah.
Second season?
What
Okay.
season are we in?
I don't know.
We're starting our
No
fourth.
idea.
We're
Okay.
starting
Oh,
our
wow.
fourth season.
Wow.
Yeah. I figured that out the other day, and it freaked me out.
Yeah, we're excited for our upcoming seasons because we're going to go back. We're going to try out some themes, and those are yet to be announced. But we did our Sister Sonder, and we did it spooky. But we're going to delve into some new themes and try some new things out. So we're very excited for that.
that is fantastic. Like Wile E. Coyote's Acme company in the Looney Tunes cartoons, Sonder is a name of things. It's the name of people, it's the name of places, it's the name of products. And it's such a, I don't even know if you'd call it an Easter egg, but it's like such a delightful little thing because it's not hidden. But it's such a delightful little thing. How did it come about that the word Sonder is used in episodes unironically?
Who brought we were looking for a name for the show, and someone brought the word Sonder to the cast's attention.
I want to say it was Susan. Was
I
it?
think it was Susan Deming.
That sounds right. Susan.
Probably.
Yeah. And the word, it's one of those lesser known words, and it means the sudden realization that all of the people around you are living their own complete and detailed lives. And that just, for whatever reason, that sort of resonated with us and what we were doing. So we chose that as the name of the thing. But then when did we start integrating the word into the story? It had happened by the time we started doing shows, because Sonder Mom was in our first show.
Yeah,
Right.
Jeff.
I think we were going to call the town Saunderville, and that's where all these weird things happen. And I think that's maybe how we started putting Sonder in everything.
That could be.
We had a
Yeah.
few different iterations. We were going to lean a little towards like Bradbury for a minute there, and then we went like
Fantastic.
Americana. We sort of drifted in and out of a lot of things, but at some point we just stumbled upon the idea that things should be Sonder, like whatever, it could be a corporation or whatever, sort of some important element would be named that, so that was sort of the thread that goes in between all of them. That's
And
one of my favorite things about the whole thing, frankly.
And like normalizing the abnormal, and like it's one of our sort of signpost things for doing the show. And one of the things that we try to remind each other of as we're going into a show is, okay, normalize the abnormal, paint the environment, focus on relationships. say Sonder. And I can't remember who, but a couple of people I think in the cast have little post-it on their
I do.
like their yeah that says say Sonder, because it's easy to lose track of when you're telling a story, and it's not like it's just a fun little thing. It's like an Easter egg but not hidden, but it's really easy to neglect if it's not somewhere in your attention. So every time that we're doing a show and someone drops it, I'm always like, oh, thank God, because I never would have remembered.
Yep.
Yeah.
For me, the Sonder being different things like the names of things or places really helps cement in the idea that this is a world that's adjacent to our own real world as I said before, it's the thread that kind of goes in between, but it really sort of points out how this reality is different than the reality of our last show, is different from the reality of our other show, is different from our own reality. I feel like that's such a great signpost way of reinforcing that in a kind of a subtle way.
Tell us just a little bit about your background as an improviser, as a storyteller, as an actor. Were you the kid in the backyard getting all the neighborhood kids to do a play? And then maybe add on to that, like what sort of sci-fi things or horror movies or things you had exposure to as a kid?
Oh my gosh. I don't know that I was always the kid putting on the play, but I really loved to play, and did a lot of, acting stuff in school. I was not a big sci-fi person until until I did Twilight Zone at Impro, and I don't think I had even ever seen a Twilight Zone episode, and then I don't know why, but anyways, when we started that genre, I watched it and I got so into it. And then I just loved how, with Twilight Zone, and we try to do this with Sonder too, like there's a lot of kind of commentary that's political, but because it's like this very bizarre, weird thing, it's palatable for people. And it doesn't seem to me to come across as like preachy or, one bias towards one side per se. So I have really fallen in love with sci-fi as a result of that Twilight Zone genre, and then doing this has just been, it's so fun to like just explore these very weird, abnormal things, and make them true, and it's kind of feels like daydreamy in a way, and I love that about Sonder. So
Cool.
and scene.
uh,
Thank you.
Troy, what about you? Did you grow up an actor kid, and when you weren't acting, doing sci-fi, or did you grow up like interested in physics or something like that? What was your?
Yeah, I was a budding Albert Einstein when I was young. No, I was the class clown, and I was a movie geek. So like that kind of, those things kind of like were my sweet spot when getting involved in improv, because I'm a storyteller, I'm a writer, so like that's the thing that drew me to improv, is like, well, improv will probably be great for opening up storytelling and writing. And then you start and then if you're a fan of cinema or TV or novels or stuff like this, then your brain starts thinking in terms of how I can see how this story will go. Not that you're going to impose your will, but like all that stuff is in your head at your disposal, right? So that's kind of the cool thing about Sonder, is that like, it doesn't have to be sci-fi, right? But if the story starts to lean into it, then that part of your brain starts to go, oh, here are a myriad possibilities where this could go. When the moment strikes, I'll grab the one that hits me the strongest, right? And then that's kind of cool to see. Well, if I throw that little cherry bomb in there, what's going to happen? So that's been a lot of fun. But I don't think any of us go into each story expecting it to be science fiction, right? I mean, we know there's going to be something weird, but I think we've had some stories where like the weird thing was so in the background that you could have taken the mention of it away and it would have been just this interesting domestic drama or whatever.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
You're also good at tying the question back to the production of Sonder. I love it. You're like a interviewer's sort of dream in a way. But feel free to just talk about.
I hope the check's in the mail, Mike.
Jeff, were you an actor kid?
Oh, dude, I was such a pain in the ass. I was the class clown, and when I was really young, I wanted to be in the talent show. I was in first grade, and they didn't let first graders in the talent show because they were afraid that these kids would get up there and kind of like shit the bed and like not do it. So I remember my mom had to go in to talk to the principal Osterhaus, and say, if he says he's going to do it, he's going to do it. And I got to be in the talent show. I did my rendition of my favorite. I used to eat a lot of cereal as a child, so it was my favorite breakfast cereal commercial. And I was the blue kangaroo. And John Gluckstein played the construction worker. And I still remember a part of the song, but perhaps that's for part 2 of this. And then my first play was playing Huck Finn, and I just fell in love, and that was in 4th or 5th grade, and I knew immediately what I wanted to do with my life, which has been kind of a blessing and a curse. It's been good because I'm like, oh, I know what I want. So when everybody wanted to be a football player or an astronaut, I knew what I wanted to do, but that's also been problematic because, it's probably a lot easier for me to be an astronaut or a starting center my size for the Green Bay Packers.
Blessing and curses too. I identify with that. Exactly. Jeff. Rebecca?
Yeah, I did plays and like little church musicals at first, and then other musicals, and watched Saturday Night Live every Saturday, even though I really should have been in bed, and then performed for what my mom missed the next morning. And I was so good at it that even 10 years ago, my mom asked me, perplexed, why I hadn't signed up for Saturday Night Live. Why, Becky? Don't know, Mom.
You should really have signed up. You should sign up.
I know. Where do I sign up? But I wasn't really a sci-fi person until I got old enough to know, because I think I thought, oh, well, like, why? I mean, I wasn't like a fantasy person or a sci-fi person, or I didn't play Dungeons and Dragons. I didn't do any of that stuff. I mean, I wanted to be a serious actress. Okay. But then later, I realized it's not fiction at all. It's just predictive. And then it's like, oh, that's interesting. So now I have more of a taste for it than I did. As you can see, when you listen to Sonder.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
Full circle.
Your all's press agent is going to be very happy with how you've done this today. Rick?
Message discipline. Message discipline. I grew up thinking that I was going to go into science or medicine, which looking back is really hilarious because not because I wasn't like, I had, aptitude in that direction, but like, from what I'm told by my family, I was performing whole commercials at the age of 2 for them, like the whole thing. And I remember being, when my parents would have friends over, they'd drag me into the living room and say, okay, do Danger Mouse, or, do Inspector Clouseau. And then away I would go, and I would, entertain everybody. And then they'd be like, okay, good, brush your teeth. Um, and I would make, like, we had a video camera at one point, like a VHS, big, enormous thing. And I would make terrible movies with my friends in the backyard. And I did school plays. And, when I got into high school, I got into like drama, and helped start my high school improv group. And all this time, I'm going to go into, science. And it wasn't until like probably my junior year of high school that I was just like, oh, like the thing that I spend all of my energy and interest in is not science. And so I doubled down on improv and acting, and the money has just rolled in ever since. Um, but I get, I'm in my early 40s now, and I think there's probably a lot of people here who can relate to like looking back and going like, oh, what if I had gotten like, what if I'd had like a career, like a regular career? Oh, Karen has to go. Bye, Karen.
I was going to do that so quietly.
Yeah.
Karen was good.
Yeah. Okay.
Karen was going to try to bow out quietly. Thank you,
I was
Karen.
doing it.
Not gonna let you. Yeah.
No
Karen's-
ghosting.
Thank you. Bye.
Karen
Bye.
is co-executive producing this current run of Sonder. Thank you, Karen. Looking forward to it. Rick?
Well, I was just gonna say, like, I look back and I go, well, what if I had gone, the sort of the safe direction, what would it be like to have retirement savings, or any kind of like consistent, income or whatever. But the flip side is like I get to spend so much of my time doing stuff that I love with people that I get to just fall in artistic love with people, like this cast, and spend so much time like laughing and excited and blown away. So it's worth my reminding myself of that, because sometimes it gets the life of an artist is challenging. But then you get to work on something like Sonder, the improvised podcast. Back to you, Mike.
This is really impressive. Gail Brennan Jackson, co-executive producer of this current run of Sonder. What about you? I know I've known Gail longer than I've known, I think, anybody on the planet.
What was the question?
Did you grow up an actor kid, and were you exposed? Did you like, or were you drawn to horror movies and
Right.
sci-fi and that sort of thing as a kid?
Yes. Well, Mike, I grew up in a kind of a more rural area, and I had a very rich inner life because there wasn't a lot of kids around to play with, not a ton of kids around. So I was always sort of a little storyteller, but when I was really little, I mostly loved animals, and I hilariously told my mother I was going to be a jockey when I grew up. Because if you know me, I'm 6 feet tall, and that was never going to happen. Of course, I told my mother, how do you know? But so I remember making my brother watch my little plays. I would like get behind the curtains and then open the curtains and make him watch my plays and all that. And I would go off into the woods and just make up my own stories and play in the creek and do my own thing. And so a lot of it later, I realized like, oh, so much of it was just make believe and playing and making up my own worlds and all of that, and so there was not really an opportunity to do theater when I was in grade school, but when I got into high school, I started with dance, which is also hilarious because I am super uncoordinated. But then I got into theater because my friend was in theater, and but I always thought of theater as something that was for other people, and you had to be really good at it, or you had to know what you were doing. And my friend said, no, just come and audition or be in the class or whatever. And so I did, and oh my God, that was it for me. I fell in love with it, and I did it ever since. And then I discovered improv, which was amazing because it was sort of like I was really good at writing when I was a kid. All the way through school, I was bad at everything else, but I was really good at English and writing. And so but I was really lazy and continue to be so. So being able to improvise stories was like writing and being in them at the same time. So what could be better than that? And also having a goof with all these, people that you come to love and respect and delight in. And I also loved science fiction. I'm a huge science fiction nerd. I love science fiction. I was terrified of horror movies, though. My friend tormented me with The Birds once when I was and I was very afraid of horror movies as a kid, but I loved I loved Star Trek. Loved watching Star Trek after school because I am 150 years old. I was when improv started back in the early 50s, 1850s. So I loved Star Trek. I loved, but I also loved like the Carol Burnett show, and I thought, and even the Sonny and Cher show, all variety shows. So all of that has sort of coalesced. There's that word again that I can't say. Coalesced. Thank you. Into Sonder, the podcast.
Right on message. Andrew Pierce, can you coalesce this into?
I'm going to keep using that word that I don't know.
Andrew, I believe, is the only Canadian import in the cast, in the ensemble of Sonder.
I think so.
Yeah, and I'm glad you put this last so you can just edit it out of the episode. No.
Or edit it out. You're welcome.
I was a little ham until I was about 7 years old, and because I put on shows, I would sing in front of my parents' friends. I don't know, I'm going to blame daddy issues. Some trauma happened to me when I was 7, and I suddenly became the shyest kid, and basically buried myself in sci-fi books. So yeah, I was all in on that, and because I was so shy, I wasn't the class clown. But I would write for the class clown. I would be the guy behind the scenes, like, wouldn't it be funny if we did this? And then he'd go and do that. And so that's the way I kind of expressed myself there. And I remember when I was 17, my sister goes, "Oh, let's go to this improv show." And I was like, I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna do that. It's going like that. And I sat in the audience and I watched the show, and I turned to my sister at the end and said, "I have to do that." And she was like, "You're the shyest kid I've ever known. No way." But I signed up, went to Loose Moose. I got taught by just phenomenal people there.
Who are some of your Loose Moose teachers?
I mean, Keith was, one. When we got classes with Keith, that was fantastic.
This is Keith Johnstone that Andrew Pierce is mentioning.
Yeah, sorry. I just know my first name. Come on. But the three folks on the Impro cover, Ingrid Hamilton and Tony Totino and Jim Curry. My first class at Loose Moose was with Bruce McCullough, and he and I became an Impro team for a long, long time until he finally moved to Toronto, and then got the kids in the hall together. But that was kind of my origin. Turned that into a career, but I also kind of pursued visual effects on the other side of it. So, I mean, Star Wars blew my mind. I'd always been trying to do stop motion animation with my dad's camera, and I saw what the visual effects were possible. And so I kind of did that. And my university professor had a poster of Alien on the wall. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I did some visual effects for that." And I thought, wow, there's a path from doing computer graphics in Calgary to getting to work on a film. I got to pursue that. So I kind of had my science and my improv kind of went there too. And so even in Toronto, when I was working, I had an improv troupe, and then came down here. I came to see Sondheim at the Gary Marshall, and this was my first experience with Impro. And I thought, oh, this is gonna be super fun. And I went in, it was super fun, but also I was crying in the middle from an emotional arc, and I went, fuck, this is theater. God damn it, they tricked me. It wasn't an improv show. Excuse me for swearing. But so at that point, I was like, well, I have to come and join Impro. And then, finally coming to Sonder with the science fiction, bringing the science fiction and the Impro together. Sonder.
That was, again, beautifully done. I ask this in every Impro talk. Is there a message that you want to say to, a person who's a storyteller, who's, maybe writing for their class clown, or convincing their brother to watch them do a play, or memorizing commercials to perform for the folks? You are all accomplished adult storyteller, actor, improvisers, professionals. What would you say to someone of any age who's kind of leaning artistically and isn't sure what to do or how to do it?
I'll go first. I have the honor and pleasure of teaching for the Disney Performing Arts program at Disneyland for about 15 years, and came across literal thousands of kids and taught improv to thousands of kids in that time. And I always said the same thing to them, because I know for me, as I said, I didn't know that door was open to me. But what I would say is that door is absolutely open to you, and get in here, because it's an all play. And the other thing is that we, all of us, these adult professionals, we are literally you. So get in.
Beautiful, beautiful. It's an all play. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I would add one thing is, like, improv has given me more than I've taken from it. It's helped me in all areas of my life, even just personal interactions. So do it.
I'd say too, give yourself permission to get in trouble, right? I got in trouble all the time as a kid. I'm not saying be the bully, right? But if a creative notion hits you, lean into it. And if it gets you in trouble, if you spoke out loud and you weren't supposed to in a quiet setting, or if you were a bit disruptive, I mean, better to give voice to those instincts than to clamp down on them because you think the rules are telling you can't do it. I got in trouble as a kid, good-natured trouble, and that's what I would say. Get into some good-natured trouble.
Thank you, Troy.
I love that. I would say, you can do this work and not want to perform, right? That just the exercises, just the games we play are just that. They're games. And if you feel like you're a little shy, or you're going through a transition in your life, you're having a rough patch, this can really shake your shit up and make you think in different ways, because it forces you to agree. It forces you to think about something that's not going on up here. And if you just put your hands in space and work with, like, space objects, this unlocks. And if you just have a conversation with somebody, it can absolutely be transformative. It can change your entire life. That sounds like I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, because I am, but what Andrew said is true. It goes beyond like performance and acting and all of that. If you have another artistic pursuit that you're into, this totally helps it. Whether it's writing, I like to paint. It helps my painting. I would imagine if you're a sculptor, it just helps. Why can't I do that? Why can't I screw up my painting by doing this and then having a happy accident? So just jump off. The net will appear, but you're not going to need it because you're going to fly.
There's Ray Bradbury again.
Sonder.
Anyone else with thoughts for creatively inclined?
I think whether you're inclined to do this stuff, professionally or not, I think the the world, and probably especially like our society, has a tendency to treat the arts like they're expendable, like we don't need them, like they're a luxury. And that's fundamentally false. Like we need them. Human beings need the arts. We need them. And so doing this stuff has value even if you are surrounded by people that treat it like it doesn't and want to pay you with exposure and want to, tell you that they're gonna, reschedule your thing that you worked so hard on because they have, like a rally for the football team or whatever it is. Like it has value, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And remember that like the arts require that like vulnerability, and say that I'm not saying anything new here. I'm regurgitating other people, but I agree with it. The arts require that like sensitivity and vulnerability, but they also require you to deal with rejection on often a daily basis, and it's difficult, and it's worth finding people who will support your endeavors and realize that like success and failure, like they're kind of meaningless. So like just make stuff, and be around people who think it's good that you're making stuff, I guess.
Creativity is a human need and a human right, and creative expression is in the hierarchy of needs.
Yes, yes. Like I in the chat, I'm writing preach when he's going on, and I'm writing arts matter. I mean, I'm a parent, and I know I'm interrupting genre over here, but it's true. Like we take this stuff from kids, and kids are all artists, right? And then it gets beaten out of us. Oh no, you got to get a job, you got to do that. And this is an opportunity to be a kid again and to realize, oh, this stuff is really important, especially when you're going through a pandemic, especially when you're going through a transition in your life, especially when a redhead just won't shut them up. Sonder.
Thank you, Jeff Bowser. I like that you put preach. Jeff appears in the show Perry Mason as a person under the spell of a preacher. You should check it out. And Rebecca Lohman also appears in Perry Mason. So that's a kind of a weird coincidence in the Sonder ensemble.
Same episode too, right, guys? Same episode.
I believe so, but we didn't see each other on set.
Rebecca Lohman, do you have thoughts for storytellers?
I do. I think that I mean, we're always trying to get back what Jeff was just talking about. Like we want to like get the that sense of playback and that sense of wonder, and so yes, if it's easier if you never let it go, just like try to hold on to that, but also just the importance of storytelling, especially now in a country that seems to be hemorrhaging empathy, that this is how you understand each other, by listening to each other's stories, telling your own, coming together to put all of your experiences together. I feel like in a world in which arts education continued past 1970 something, we might be a more cohesive nation. That's really dumb, but I don't know that it's that outsized to say it. So yeah, but also if you really want to do audio visual work or something, by all means, I mean, if you have something else that you are good at and love, you know, that's okay too.
Mhm. Fantastic.
Sonder, Sonder.
Sonder, 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 Sonder.
Coming up on the Impro Theater YouTube channel, you'll be able to hear Sonder live improvised storytelling on the Impro Theater YouTube channel starting November 11th, 12th, 13th, and then the 18th, 19th, and 20th, Fridays and Saturdays at 8 p.m., Sundays at noon. Those are if you want to experience the live version, which is amazing. And then the season will come out as a podcast some months later with all the sweetening and music and editing and all this sort of stuff as well.
And you can listen to our old seasons right now on
Yes, on whatever podcast platform you access, Sonder, the improvised podcast. You can follow them on social media.
That'd be so
Everybody
great.
do that.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, part one, Sonder. And I'll see some of you next week for part two. And everyone else, we'll see you during the shows.
Oh, wait. Rebecca
Thanks,
has
Mike.
more to say.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, maybe you can guest with us sometime.
Oh, I would love that.
That'd
would
be
love that.
great.
I'd like that.
Okay.